A super important piece of your Frugal Fresh Start is getting a handle on any debt that you have. Our own current financial goal is to pay off mortgage debt, so this is a topic that's always at the top of our minds.
If you don't have any debt at all, congratulations! You can skip this video and take a day off. For everyone else, it's time to get all of your debt out in the open.
We're Mike and Stephanie. We blog over at sixfiguresunder.com where we teach families how to get out of debt and reach their financial goals. We're on day 11 of the Frugal Fresh Start Challenge. If you're joining us partway through, we'll have a link to the whole playlist and to your free Frugal Fresh Start workbook down below in the description.
While you can't expect to tackle your entire debt within this 28-day challenge, laying it out and coming up with a rough long-term plan is the first step.
Maybe paying off some of your debt is part of the 6-month goal that you set on day 1. Now that's great. You need to get a true picture of where you stand regarding debt next.
If your debt is spread across multiple creditors, get all the details in one place, get out your workbook and turn to day 11 and find the form Debt, the Big Picture.
Record the following details about each of your debts: the name of the debt, the total amount owed, the interest rate, the minimum monthly payment, and the monthly due date. Don't let this discourage you. Let the big picture motivate you to take this frugality business seriously so you can get yourself to a better place financially. Here's how it works. Let's say you have 5 debts: a mortgage, 2 car loans, a credit card balance, and some medical debt. For this example, I'll use amounts that are close to the current national average for American households. The mortgage is just over $200,000 with the monthly payment of $1,029. That's our average. One car loan here has a balance of $11,498 and a monthly payment of just under $500. The second car loan is about $2,000 with a monthly payment of $237. And there's a single credit card with a balance of almost $11,000 and a medical debt of $13,500.
Now that you have it all out in front of you, the first thing is to make sure that your budget is set to cover the minimum payments on every debt. In your workbook, total up the complete amount of debt owed and the sum of the monthly payments. If it's at all possible, it's so important to pay at least the monthly minimum on each of your debts. Otherwise, you end up with penalties and the debts get bigger and bigger and harder to pay off.
So your budget from day 7 should include debt payments that at least equal your minimum payments. If you missed a debt when you were putting together the budget, now's a good time to go and make some adjustments. If you are in a situation where there's no way, no matter how much you cut from the budget, to make the minimum payments, I'm so sorry. That reality isn't great. But it is real. And in this situation, you may need to choose which debts are most important to stay current on. Focus on increasing your income any way that you can and start thinking about seeking either complete or partial debt forgiveness. It might be helpful to go and find some community debt counseling to help you put together an individualized debt reduction plan.
For the rest of us, we'll follow the same general plan. Assuming that you have more than one debt, you'll make just the minimum payments on all of your debts, except one. And for that one, you'll throw every dollar you can find at it until it's completely eliminated.
But wait, there's one other thing we have to do before diving straight into a serious debt payoff plan. And that is to get an emergency fund in place. An emergency fund is just some money you set aside to handle financial emergencies without derailing your entire debt payoff plan. And you never touch the money unless you have a real financial emergency. But having it there, just in case, gives you a sense of security even when you have a lot of debt.
It also keeps you from getting derailed on your budget as you get started. In the first months with a new budget, you'll find expenses that you hadn't considered, and you'll realize that your expected spending estimates for some budget categories were way off. This is normal. It's actually great because it means you're learning more about your financial reality. But it does mean it's easy to blow your budget early on.
So because of that, you'll need to adjust your budget a little bit each month and it'll get better. But in the meantime, your emergency fund can temporarily double as your "I'm getting better at budgeting but I'm not quite a pro yet" safety fund. Having a little cash set aside helps you when you might need to cover an expense you hadn't planned for. In that case, go ahead and use the emergency fund and then fill it back up again as soon as you can. But don't make this a habit. This is just for starting out. An emergency fund is primarily meant for real, completely unforeseeable emergencies, not just to cover habitual lazy budgeting. Within a few months of closely tracking your spending, you should have an emergency fund full and sitting there just untouched except for completely unforeseeable, well, pants on fire type of emergencies. If you don't have an emergency fund already, focus on building one up as the first step of your debt payoff plan.
A standard starting point for an emergency fund is $1,000, though for a lot of people that's on the low side. I can't tell you what the right number for you is. You'll want to consider factors like what your emergencies have looked like in the past and how much your normal expenses for a month are. The size of your emergency fund will also depend on how long you expect your debt payoff to take. If you anticipate a longer debt payoff time frame, you'll want to have more saved. When we were paying off Mike's law school student loans, we first built an emergency fund of about a month's expenses, about $3,000 at the time. After finishing those loans, we built our emergency fund to 6 months. Because our monthly expenses now also include a mortgage, that 6-month emergency fund is about $25,000 to $30,000. Choose a number that you're comfortable with. Your number is probably different than the next guy's, but write your emergency fund number down in day 11, in the day 11 section of your workbook, and start saving.
So now we're back after that little detour to today's main idea, which is getting rid of your debt. Your budget includes all your minimum debt payments, and you'll soon have the safety of an emergency fund in place if you don't already. It's time to make your plan of attack. Whether it's a 6-month plan or a 6-year plan, you need a plan. Your debt won't pay itself off, I promise. You have to do it. If you have just one debt, it's easy to know where to start. But if you have multiple debts, you'll have to decide where you want to focus first.
The best way to pay off multiple debts is to focus your attention on one of the debts at a time while keeping up the minimum payments on all your other debts. All the extra money that you earn and every dollar you save from other categories in your budget goes toward the one debt that you are focusing on.
And when you finish paying off that first debt, take the amount you were paying toward the first debt, that's the minimum payment plus whatever extra you could come up with, and put it towards the second debt. And when the second debt is paid off, take the minimum payments from that first debt, debt 1, and from debt 2, plus whatever extra you can get, and use that money to pay off the third debt. You see how these payments get bigger and bigger as you kind of roll them up? The idea of focusing on one debt at a time and rolling those payments from the debts you already paid off into the payment for the next debt in line, that's called the debt snowball method of debt payment.
The big question is the order that you'll put your debts in, which one you start paying off first. There are two main ways to do this. You can either put them in order from smallest to largest debt balance, or order them from the lowest to the highest interest rate.
Often when people talk about the debt snowball method, they're talking specifically about ordering their debts by size of balance. That's probably because this is the way Dave Ramsey teaches it, and he's a big voice in personal finance. If you have to choose just one way that works best for the most number of people, starting with the smallest debt first is probably that way.
This method has you focus on paying off the smallest debt first, no matter the interest rate. You make minimum payments on all debts, and any additional funds go toward the debt with the smallest outstanding balance. When that smallest debt is paid in full, you take the monthly payment that you were making toward the small debt and add it to the minimum payment you're making on the next smallest debt. There are good reasons for choosing your smallest debt first, but the most important reason is that you get a quick win. The feeling of success you get when you finish paying off your first debt is so motivating. It's a euphoria that helps you keep up the momentum to work on your larger debts.
The other way to order your debts is to pay off the debt with the highest interest rate first, and then the next highest rate second, and then on down the line. For a lot of people, the debts with the highest interest rate are also the smaller debt, so the order could be the same either way. But if your smallest debt is not your highest interest debt, you'll actually pay more in the long run by paying the smallest off first. Ordering your debts by interest rate will save you money in interest, especially if some of your loans have a much higher interest rate than others. Now, mathematically, the best order to pay off the loans is the highest interest rate first, but it's not always easy to tell whether the minimized interest is a big deal or a little deal. We love the debt snowball calculator that the folks at Easy Budget put together. It calculates the total interest and the final payoff date for each debt when you change the order of the payoff. As a debt tracking tool, it also easily lets you see how much you save on interest and how much faster you get to your debt-free date when you pay more than the minimum. It even adjusts your total interest and your payoff dates when your extra payment is different each month. I'm pretty good with Excel, and I could probably put together a similar calculator in a day or so, but I could also purchase this one that's already there for $14, save an entire day of working in Excel, and use the pre-made calculator as both a decision-making tool to choose a debt payoff order and a motivational tool to track the effect of extra payments on my debt payoff dates.
There aren't very many extra things we suggest that people buy while trying to pay off their debt. After all, the idea is to not spend the extra money. But this debt snowball calculator is one thing that I believe can really help people with more than a couple of debts maximize their debt reduction. I put together a whole video showing how it works so you can decide if you think it might work well for you. There's a link to that video down in the description.
In our case, the calculator shows that paying off our 5 average debts, starting with the highest interest rate, saves 1 month and about $1,000 over starting with the lowest balance. I was actually surprised it was only that much. The interest rate is so much higher on the credit card, but with the snowball growing as you go, it knocks out the credit card pretty quickly. So with a debt payoff horizon of several years, the $1,000 isn't a huge difference, but it's still $1,000. If you're the sort of person who's motivated by strict rationality and that saved $1,000 gets you all excited, choose the logical mathematical option and start paying off your highest interest rate first.
But don't discount the power of feeling like you're winning. Paying off debt can get old fast. So if you're the sort of person who would really appreciate crossing one debt off your list quickly, go with the smallest debt first.
Well, either way, if you're faithfully rolling over your payments from one debt to another in a debt snowball, it's amazing how fast you can go after you get a little momentum.
Choose the order that works best for your personality and your unique situation. Maybe do a combination of the two. You might even have your own additional factors that would lead you to choose a different debt first.
And that's it. It's time for the Day 11 challenge. So this is multi-part. First, get all your debts recorded in one place on the Day 11 workbook form. Second, make sure all your minimum payments are covered in the budget you made on Day 7 and adjust the budget if you need to. Third, set the order. Which debt will you pay off first, which second, and so on. And then your next step is to either build up an emergency fund if you need one, or start paying off your debt if you've already got one. You can get started on it. You're on your way to being debt-free.
And because you're cutting out one expense altogether in the Day 2 challenge,
and you're tracking every expenditure every day in the Day 3 challenge,
and you're cooking at home more often with the Day 5 challenge,
and you're lowering your fixed expenses and utilities with Days 8 and 9,
you should have a chunk of extra money this month to kickstart your Frugal Fresh Start.
So there you have it. Get started on your debt plan, and we'll see you tomorrow.